Okay, is everybody clear here? Yes? Okay, all right. So, in these pages, I'm making a workbook out of this, so don't worry about the page numbers on here. So, the subject to process, I put this map together, just so it gives you a little bit of understanding here, okay? So you've got a motivated seller right here. Why do we have motivated sellers? Like we just talked about, death, destruction, no. Death, sickness, divorce, loss of job, moving, retirement, whatever. We've got a motivated seller. You're going to actually pre-screen the seller. We're going to talk about that. You're going to set the appointment at the property. When you pre-screen the seller, I want you to be sitting in the kitchen at the dining room table, or your team member, if you're going to have somebody locally doing this. Set the second meeting on neutral ground and make offer and sign contracts. This is perfect for somebody, let's say that you're not going to be down here, but I know some of you are, like Dallas and well, Dallas won't be, but Charles and Martin, and some of you other guys that are actually being down here for 6 months at a time, and you're actually doing work here. This is a perfect strategy in that little area to start working that, because you know people are in those situations where they get laid off and sick and divorced and all that. So the second meeting on neutral ground to make offer and sign contracts. I don't want those signed in the house because I want to remove the emotion from the selling side of that. And I want you to focus on providing a solution to the problem at hand. I want you to perform due diligence on the property, the mortgage, the seller, and the market. Now, some of this can be done prior to that, but what I'm talking about here is this. You might be involved in a market in which the home price is beneath the mortgage amount. Is that a problem? Some of you are shaking your head, yes? Why is that a problem?
Has a higher mortgage than the market price.
Why would you buy something with a higher mortgage than the market price? I know a couple of answers to that question. Does anybody else know?
100% financing.
What's that?
100% financing.
Number one, you get 100% financing, but what's another couple?
Cash flow.
Cash flow. That's the second one. Remember, sales markets and rental markets are different. If you can get somebody in that unit to pay rent, and the market rent is higher than the mortgage payment and covers the expenses and provides cash flow to you, this is another cog in the wheel of how you might get to your number 20. See, some of you may be using every one of these techniques that I've gone over. Some of you may. Others are going to focus on one or two. But if you can just pick up one or two subject to properties and have it cash flow $200 a month, you might say, well, John, why wouldn't the owner do that? Right. Why wouldn't the owner do that? Anybody know? Emotion. They don't know how. They don't want to deal with landlords. If they've lost their job, they're probably, have a lot of other things going on. So this is a really good opportunity. Why would be another reason why I would buy a house where the house market or the house value is below the mortgage? Anybody?
Negotiate the mortgage down.
You could negotiate the mortgage balance down. Thank you, Steve. That's number one. What's another one? In a market, I'm sorry?
You expect it to go up?
Yeah, Wayne, exactly. Especially in sexy markets, Vegas, Phoenix, Florida, where the inventory, did you hear her today when she said, we are going to get another influx of inventory, but that's going to be the last one? I do believe that. I think either she's right on or she's not very far off. And I think you're going to start to see a little bit more aggressive appreciation after this next wave comes. 2012, 2013. But after that, I think you're going to start to see a little bit more price appreciation. So when I see that, I think, what are the markets in which they're going to come back the fastest? And I automatically think sexy markets first. The first one being anything by water. Those will come back first and the most aggressive. The second ones are going to be anything that is tourism-based, Orlando, Las Vegas. The third are going to be things like Phoenix, or other hot markets. My market, Chicago, where I live, always seems to lag behind. When 2008 hit and Phoenix and Vegas and Florida were really hitting the bottom, we were fine in the Midwest. We didn't hit the down curve of the market in the Midwest until 2010, 2011. There's always a lag behind. California is also going to lead that as a state. When you start to see the description or discussion of price appreciation in the marketplace in those areas, buy water first, tourism places, Orlando, Las Vegas, California, and then places like Phoenix, it's already too late. You've already missed that initial curve. You want to get these things in its infancy. Now, there is one caveat here. If the mortgage amount is so much higher than the home value, and it's going to take 20 years for that to catch up, which in some markets that is the case, then obviously that may not be your target purchase. That may not be your target property. Does everybody see that? So we definitely have to get an understanding of home value, market value, and kind of what's going in that market. This tends to work very well also in Midwestern areas or emerging markets, even Charlotte, Atlanta. I like Atlanta for this strategy because Atlanta hasn't really had the best employment scenarios. And so this ongoing thing is happening all the time of people getting laid off and losing their job. But the reason I like this in Atlanta is because they didn't have the giant run-up in appreciation like a Las Vegas or Phoenix or Florida, but there was just enough to make it attractive to investors. So the price point of the mortgage amount and the value of the house is fairly close right now. It's fairly close. So I really, if you're in Atlanta, or if you're in Charlotte, or if you're in some of those other emerging markets, like Kansas City even, I would look to start implementing this as like one cog in the wheel that's producing income for me. Remember, it all goes back the first day. What's your number? Is it 20? Well, let's talk about that 20. How are we going to get to 20? Well, I'm going to do a subject to, I'm going to do a wrap, I'm going to buy a small apartment building, and I'm going to do a couple of flips. Eventually down the line, I'm going to do a buy and hold for a single family house. So you're going to have 3, 4, 5 things going at once. It's nice to have kind of multiple streams of income flowing into you, okay, from a few different areas. Does this make sense to people here? Okay, you're grasping this? Good. So you're going to perform due diligence on the property, the mortgage, the seller, the market. I would almost argue that that is done, a lot of that is done prior to finding your seller. The next thing you're going to ask yourself is, does the deal work? Does it cash flow? Let's say that we found that rental market there, let's just say we're talking about a property in Atlanta. It's going to give you $250 a month in cash flow. Great. So yes, the deal works. You're going to go here, and then you're going to put the contract together, get it closed at the title company or attorney. If the deal doesn't work, I don't want you to give up on it. Renegotiate the price and terms, perhaps, and start that process over again. You've got to make sure the numbers work. I think that's real important. Is there questions on this? I'd have you just come up to the mic just so we get it recorded, if that's cool. That means, yeah, feel free to go up to the mic.
I don't really like to go to.
I know you don't like to go, Oksana.
Just because of my English, nothing else. I just have one question. I like all those strategies, but
We get more buts here. Yes.
If we in Canada, who is our representative?
That's a great question. Like, some of you have actually made the decision to spend more time here. Others of you, if you're going to use a technique like this, you're going to have to find somebody on the ground. Could it be a real estate agent? Sure. That would be a good partner. Maybe a property manager. Maybe just somebody that you've met in that marketplace. Maybe there's other investors in that marketplace that are doing it. So you're going to have to kind of figure that out. It's part of building your business.
And probably the second question, for exactly the same people as I am sitting in Canada, what's the best strategy from your perspective?
What's the best strategy? Well, that's kind of like saying, you know, to me, you know, what's my favorite food? I like all of them.
Well, if you're in the market, it's maybe easy to meet those people and find this kind of seller. But if you away, like I understand going to Home Step or some way, it's easy. We can do analysis on a long distance, but it's very hard to find and speak with people when you cannot sit in their dining room, right?
Yeah. So you're going to have to get a team member. So, you know, your team member as a real estate agent, a property manager. See, you might have the funds to invest to get them caught up on their mortgage. Your team member locally may be putting in the time and meetings. Where's Penny? Like Jill may be a great partner for you. Her agent locally in Atlanta. So, okay, so they're already doing something like this. Great partner. Jill's got the knowledge, she's got the ability to meet with the people locally, and Jill's going to get paid off the transaction perhaps. She's going to share in the profits of the home, however they've arranged that in their operating agreement. But that's a perfect example of how you could set this up where you and Gary are in Canada, you have your contact person locally, and you started a company and started a business in doing that. Okay?
To say them to do.
It's easier said than done. None of this stuff is easy. If this was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. You know, I'm just trying to give you, I wanted to give you 6 or 7 different options on how to get properties. If your number's 20, I'm going to try in as many ways as I can to get those 20. And this is yet another way. Okay? Yes?
What the lender was saying.
We're going to talk about that, the due on sale clause. We're absolutely going to discuss that in detail. Yep. The lender definitely has a mortgage in place. They're going to kind of control this transaction from the language that's in that mortgage, but I'm going to show you how we kind of get around that, some of those issues. Okay? So, motivating factors. The seller. They need to move quickly. They need to save some money. There's little or no equity. Or they're in default already. To the buyer, you might want to maintain an attractive interest rate. They might have a 30-year fixed. And I know I said earlier this may not be a long strategy for you, but they may have a 30-year fixed mortgage at 4% or 4.5% or 5% even. And if you've got to think that those interest rates are going to go up. This might be a way that you keep that low interest debt service on that property for a while. There's no qualifying for the loan. You have more control of the situation. Remember I talked about yesterday, a lot of these strategies are where, in this case, you do own the property, but control is such an important word in real estate investing. You want the control. Control almost trumps ownership. You want the control, okay? Maybe you're running into the issue that, you know, I went to RBC or I went to PNC or I went to a lender here and they said they'll lend to me, but they only lend up to 4 units in my portfolio. Has anybody heard that before? Okay, several people raise their hands. This is a technique that you want to start using if you've run into that scenario. Susan, you have what, 20? Or 16
What?
units?
Next month maybe.
Next month maybe. But you're going to have a lot more than 4, right? So, you know, you're going to run into that issue when you go to get financing, right? Anybody else run into that? No? A couple of you? Okay. When does this make sense? Number 1, when there's lots of equity in the property. Number 2, when there's low or an attractive interest rate, which we have today. Number 3, in a rapidly appreciating market, safe travels guys, in a rapidly appreciating market. Number 4, if it's a rough or ugly property where they couldn't normally sell it the traditional way, in a market where there's many foreclosures, this is a way that if you're finding yourself running into a multiple bid situation on home path or home steps, move up the stream a little bit and fish differently. Or maybe, again, when there's too many mortgages in your portfolio, I think this is a good strategy to use, along with people like hard money, like the presentation that you already just saw. I think all of these ways are great ways to get to that 20. What's your number? Remember, what does that number do, by the way? I hate to keep going back to that. That replaces your income.